Hello and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. My name is Amy. I'm an Administrative Services Manager here at Baggett. And joining me today is my friend Maria Sandoval. We have known each other since high school. So what, like 5 years now? Six? Something
Yes, brand new out of high
totally.
school.
It is National Social Work Month, and Maria is heavily involved in social work in the field. And so I asked her to come on and share with us a little bit. So Maria, what do you do? Tell us that.
So I work for the Division of Child and Family Services, is what it's called here in Utah. But my particular position is a domestic violence coordinator. So I work particularly with domestic violence services and how that impacts the family as a whole.
A lot.
Yes.
What is
Yes, it
the
does.
hardest part of your job?
The hardest part is probably not being able to save everyone, as we say, or fix what's wrong with the family. But what I had to learn early on in life in this field is that people have to want your help,
Mm,
and and they have to want to change as well, which means they have to acknowledge that there's a problem and want to fix that, and that can be a little hard, which I get. Not many of us want to hear from a stranger what's wrong with us and what we need to do to fix it. So that can definitely be hard. Sometimes walking away from a situation and just not feeling like, oh, I didn't make a difference, I didn't help. Um, so that can definitely be hard.
I can definitely, yeah, absolutely. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Um, when I am able to see a change in somebody, because as along with my job title, I'm also a licensed clinical social worker, so I'm a therapist. So working with people who do get it and do identify and want to change, being able to see that change and have them actually come back and say, I didn't know that that was an issue. Thank you for helping me fix it. Or maybe you don't even get that thank you, which we don't tend to get a lot, but you definitely see the change in the family and you know that you helped with that.
Yeah.
So
Well, hopefully this is a
absolutely.
reminder that those thank yous are important. That having a month like this, I know it's not like the most popular, the most promoted, but we want to make sure it's out there so people do know to say thank you because it's huge work that you guys do and emotional and so involved and you know in depth and like we were talking about earlier, you are counselors. Something you mentioned earlier was people don't know when they should report something. So when should it be reported?
So, in particularly with child abuse, I get the questions all the time. People will call me and say, I know this person who is abusing their child, and they'll like give me very spotty details and say, well, you have to report that now, right? Because I told you, and I'll say, well, actually, you have to report it because every single living, breathing human being is a mandatory reporter. So we obviously want to protect kids. We want to protect other humans who are being hurt. In that particular case, like domestic violence. Not that it's mandatory, but it's always good practice. I always tell people if you suspect your neighbor adult is being abused, call. You don't have to leave your name. You don't have to, but just report things. 'Cause we want to make sure that people are protected. So yeah, if you suspect something, just call it in. And like I said, it can be anonymous, which thank goodness, you don't
Yeah,
have to report for
that makes
police,
it a lot
for
easier.
yes, yes, for child abuse reporting, for whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's what most people think of is children when you think of social work, but there's so many other different areas. What kind of areas are there that social work involves?
So you can find social workers in hospitals, the ER. It's so funny when I encourage, as I said earlier, there's kind of a shortage in social workers. And so I find myself, I had to take a friend who got in a car accident a couple months ago. I had to take him to the ER and I was helping him, be interviewed by this hospital social worker. And I just happened to start making small talk. And she's like, oh, well, are you just in a job? We're hiring. And my friend's like, hello, like he's in the hospital. And she's like, I'll get to you in a minute. So definitely hospitals, but all the different parts of the hospital, like the ER, like we said earlier, like cancer specific places. My mom was sick a few years ago and was on the transplant list, and they had social workers come and talk to us in the transplant unit. And it's just kind of like wherever you go, I live across the street from a care facility. They have social workers there. People are in private practice. Schools are a big one, where we actually have social workers in there that can help kids that are going through whatever at school or at home or just, whatever personal issues they have, which is great because sometimes, these parents can't either afford or have a way to take their children to therapy. So to have that service available in the schools is awesome.
Awesome. So if you do need one, where can you find one? How do you find
So
it?
So in particularly, I mean, it would kind of depend on what area. Like, for instance, my specialty, domestic violence. You could look online up domestic violence shelters, or just type in domestic violence social worker. If it's to do with health, like a cancer scare, you can look up hospital social workers or whatever that is. It's also really important to identify those resources in your area. Um, so again, if you need a domestic violence shelter, find out which one of those is in your area,
Mhm.
and just call. People are so helpful when you call and just say, hey, I need to talk to a social worker for whatever school. Like if you need for your child, call that school and just say, hey, is this something that's available to me? Um, I'm actually a couple of doctor's office visits that I've been to. I see that they ask mental health questions.
Uh-huh.
Actually, my weight loss clinic that I go to, every time I go, I have to fill out a mental health check. How are you feeling? Have you been depressed this week? Have you? And I'm like, wow, this is great that we're asking these questions in the
Yeah.
medical field, especially. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Really bringing that awareness to it. Yeah. And I
yes,
know like with oncology social workers, all of that can be such a big deal. Any major illness makes a difference, but even like you're saying, it doesn't have to be a major illness. It should just be asked as a general question when you're going into any doctor at all.
yeah. I remember I got in a car wreck and the seatbelt kind of gave me a mark, and then the airbag deployed and I had a burn on my face. And like, I'm out of it. I'm in the middle of trauma. But then I kind of started noticing the line of questioning. They were asking me, well, are you married? Do you have are you in a relationship? Do you feel safe at home? And I was like, you know what? I know what you're doing. And I absolutely love that. I love that I am a professional in this field and I didn't even realize what you were asking me until now. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that our world has kind of that we're trying to become a
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously not perfect at it, but definitely getting better. So how would one become a social worker if they are interested? As you mentioned, there is a shortage. So,
Yes. So most positions require at least a bachelor's degree. And that would be just an example for where I work at DCFS, obviously a bachelor's in social work, but or a related field. So sociology, psychology, things like that. I think we've become so desperate it doesn't necessarily have to be related, but it's got to be a bachelor's degree, and then we just have you take like some extra classes just to be kind of come a little bit more specialized. And then if you are interested in becoming a clinical social worker, that is at least 1 to 2 years more. It The master's degree is a 2 year
mhm,
degree, but where I went, I did the accelerated program, so I did it in a year. But I was able to do that because I did have a bachelor's in social work.
okay.
Um, so yeah, so it's a degree, but it's so worth it. And as I said before, there's so many different areas you can go into. Like if I got sick at DCFS, I could go to the hospital or I could go work in the schools, just do something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us and
Yes.
educating us a little bit. And I do want to just encourage everyone, if you have a social worker in your life, make sure to tell them thank you for all their hard work. Maybe find a new way to reach out, track one down and give them a thanks because they don't always get that and they definitely deserve it. So thanks again,
Yes, I
Maria.
would appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
everyone have a fabulous week. We will see you next week.